Welcome back, everybody. That's right, Expedition Reveal, the Squatchers Lounge podcast for Wednesday night, May 23rd, 2018. The voice is barely even back to spec, but we're going to give it a shot. A little bit of news, a brand new Quasi update, and another real Bigfoot encounter that everybody should enjoy. So, welcome back, everybody, to the Squatchers Lounge podcast. That's right. I am your host, the very weekend-voiced Reverend Jeff Kelly. Hello, everybody. I'm here. You're there. That makes this whole thing fantastic. So let's see if we can't get through this. It's going to be a short episode this evening. I know. They always seem so short, but tonight it might be excessively short. I don't know how long the old voice is going to last. So we'll give it a shot. In the news this week, little short pieces here. The Pongo Tapanudi, the new orangutan that they found. The new taxonomy and everything is up in the wildlife bank, and it's pretty cool information, real specific on the information of when it was found, how it was found, who found it, what the study consisted of, their geographical range, their total population. They're already decreasing and in severe, extreme endangerment. So yeah, we're gonna have to protect them from the beginning, at least until we find the rest of them, as we have with the lowland gorillas. That happened. We found out that there were 3 times as many of those as we thought there was. The mountain gorillas are still dwindling in less than no numbers at all, but the lowland gorillas, they're not in such bad shape. Okay, moving right along. Loch Ness Monster DNA tests may offer a new clue. Now, how do they even know they got DNA from? This is, again, just like the Bigfoot DNA. DNA sampling is going to be used to discover previously unrecorded organisms in Loch Ness. And that's great and all. Professor Neil Gimel of New Zealand Science leading the project, he said he did not believe in Nessie, but was confident of finding genetic codes for other creatures. He said a biological explanation might be found to explain some of the stories about the Loch Ness Monster. And, I always thought that Loch Ness was a landlocked lake and that there wouldn't be any way for things to get into it. But apparently, no, there's a river that leads to the ocean. So, yeah, be interesting to see what comes out of it, though. It's kind of like the land grab DNA spaghetti pots that they're just throwing all together and seeing what comes out of it. It'll be interesting to see what creatures they find DNA for in Loch Ness. You can check this one out in the Squatchers Lounge. Of course, our man Dean scours the net hourly to find all these cryptic type news sources for us. So here, the Hot Springs Village Voice. Ghosts, Bigfoots, aliens, are they scary? Maybe not. Well, apparently, this particular fella here is going to do a breakdown on the percentages of people around the world that actually believe in the different types of theories that are out there. 46.6% of the people apparently believe in ghosts or specters or spirits of some kind. 14.1% believe in mind reading. Only 13.5% believe that Bigfoot is actually out there. 39.6% believe in higher dimensions. 24.7% believe in UFOs. Another 20% believe that alien intervention created humans. We are some really dumb animals. Anyhow, it was an interesting read to see how it came along. And how these numbers are achieved. I wouldn't really argue with them. If 50% of the country wants to believe that ghosts and specters and spirits are real, it's probably due to the media that they're constantly watching. Moving right along. The legend of Sasquatch. That's right. Hunting Bigfoot in the Blue Ridge Mountains. News 13 sent a crew out there, and they were dealing with the beautiful wild and vast. Some people in western North Carolina are asking, are the mountains keeping a secret? Jim Charneski is a BFRO investigator and stands for the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. A couple of times a year, he teaches a class on Bigfoot at Maryland Community College in Spruce Pine. But his main job is as an investigator. He says every year people call the organization, which is national, saying they've seen Sasquatch. If you get in touch with the BFR, they will forward you information to me or one of the investigators, he explained. It's an interesting article to see how the BFRO guys actually think. I'll go out on any investigation where somebody has had eyewitness sighting to it within reason, for sure. I mean, you can't see one, experience one, or find evidence one if you don't ever put yourself in the locations where those animals exist. All right, finally wrapping up the news tonight. Sasquatch Coffee is running a Kickstarter. They want the Bigfoot community to fund $25,000 so that they can go nationwide. Now, they're not kickstarting a new product, new brand. They're not kickstarting a new, anything. He just wants $25,000 to get the funding together to promote it and produce it and I guess market it across the country. 25. So I look down here at the rewards. For $15 you get a 4-ounce bag of a sample bag and a coffee decal. For $25 you get the same 4-ounce Feelin' Squatchy coffee sample and no sticker. For $100 you'll get a decal, a 12-ounce bag of coffee, another 50 ounces of Sasquatch coffee 2 weeks apart, of which you can buy both for $48. The rewards just aren't worth the squeeze to me, in my opinion of it. I don't know, guys. I'm even bringing it up. Go look at it. It's on Kickstarter. Then you decide. I just don't know that this is the way a company should really, expand their brand by asking the public to pay for it. It's not the first time I've had that kind of opinion on this particular brand either. Anyhow, that, my friends, is the news of the week. And you're looking at my face at my YouTube channel, so I will now turn that off. Yay. Just like that, the news is over. Hey, you know what we do have this week? We do have a brand new Quasi theory from a quasi scientist. So why don't we go ahead and get that monster out of the way, and we can continue on. We'll give my voice a quick break, and we'll be back with you in just a few minutes. Enjoy this Quasi. And now, Quasi theories from a quasi scientist with your host, Dean Cooper.
The Marikokshi. As we all know, Lieutenant Colonel Percy Fawcett is known primarily for getting lost forever in his search for a lost city, which he called Z, which he believed to exist deep in the jungles of Brazil. Being British, he probably actually called it Zed. He hypothesized that Zed was an outpost of Atlantis. He based that hypothesis on a psychometric reading he had a psychic do on a small black basalt stone idol that had been given to him by H. Rider Haggard. Yes, that H. Rider Haggard, the author of King Solomon's Mines and She as in she who must be obeyed. So, based on this undoubtedly reliable source of information, he got et by the jungle. But be that as it may, the main thing Fawcett did was map the jungle area that forms the border between Bolivia and Brazil. He kept copious journals while doing so. His younger son, Brian, later edited and published the journals in book form as Lost Trails, Lost Cities. Brian's older brother, Jack, would undoubtedly have loved to have done the publishing, but alas, Jack was with his dad on that last expedition and was likewise et by the jungle. Now, buried in Lost Trails, Lost Cities are some damned curious things. things that Fawcett simply wrote down as just normal jungle border surveying incidents. I will illustrate this with just one example, his brief encounter with the Mirikokshi. Fawcett had been warned about the Mirikokshi tribe by the Maksubi, a tribe of Indians who lived a very primitive existence, much like other tribal peoples in the deep Amazon jungles. The Maksubi said basically, when you go along the path you are planning on, look out for the Mirikokshi. They are primitive buggers who are not at all civilized and will try to kill you. 5 days after Fawcett left the Maksubi, he and his crew stopped to decide which direction they should go next. Then, and I quote, two savages appeared about 100 yards to the south, moving at a trot and talking rapidly. They were large, hairy men with exceptionally long arms and with foreheads sloping back from pronounced eye ridges, men of a very primitive kind, in fact, and stark naked, end quote. The two hairy men carried bows and arrows. Fawcett, who spoke a number of local tribal languages, did not recognize the language the men spoke. The next day, Fawcett and company stumbled upon the Mirikokshi village. It was composed of very primitive shelters where, and again I quote, squatted some of the most primitive savages I have ever seen, great ape-like brutes. Then an enormous creature, hairy as a dog, leapt to his feet, fitted an arrow to his bow, and came dancing from one leg to the other until he was only 4 yards away, emitting grunts that sounded like, oog, oog, oog. He remained there dancing, end quote. The rest of the tribe followed suit, dancing from leg to leg and chanting, oog, 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 until the first guy, presumably the chief, stopped his performance and aimed his bow and 6-foot arrow at Fawcett's chest. Fawcett understandably pulled out his pistol and, not wanting to start a big battle, fired one shot into the ground. The Mirikokshi, equally understandably, took flight. Fawcett and company proceeded onward to the next surveying site. Fawcett encountered what he called tribes of even more primitive persuasion, who were even hairier and more ape-like. I found this little tidbit of Fawcett's career in a book by Ivan Sanderson titled Things and More Things. Sanderson was gobsmacked that no anthropologist had ever picked up these hairy ape-men of Fawcett's acquaintance. I am equally gobsmacked by it. You may read the text of this on my blog at bhaidin.com. It's BHAIDIN.com.
Even hairier and more primitive type of ape men. That's right. They're out there. They're called paranthropus. And they've always been out there. That is the truth of the matter. All right, people, it's time to give some shout outs here to the people that are hanging out live in the lounge tonight with us. We are so glad everybody is here. Mr. Shane Barper's in the house. How you doing there, sir? Who? Billy John. That's right. There he is. Starshine swinging her tool like usual. James the Grower. How you doing there, sir? Natalie Smith. Hope you're doing well. Kathy Alborough as well. I hope all of you guys are feeling well. Sharon Willen is in the house as well. I know there's more. Kid! Every week I gotta clean my damn microphone. I swear it's gonna be. How you doing there again? Glad you're with us. There's the Mr. Quasi Scientist himself, Mr. Dean Cooper. And I know there's more than you people in here because I saw a whole bunch more. So there we go. Aaron Gemini. Hola, right back at you. No, aloha. Oh, if you're over there, I hope you're not on the island, like the real island, like the one that's on fire, because that would suck. I hope you guys survive over there. Well, aloha to you as well. Mahalo. That's right. Get on the bus, Maho. Yeah, I know that joke. Let's see here. Gone Camping. There he is, Mr. Jevin Moore. He'll be back with us next week. He had all kind of weird recording problems today, and well, it happens sometimes. So there, Mr. Reverend Matthew Gaines. Reverend. Yeah, it's gonna be like spies like us around here before too long. Everybody's gonna be a reverend of some sort or another. Universal Life Church, 1995. You too can be a reverend. The Tall Ones is in the house. I like tall ones. Tall ones are fun. Huck Outdoors. There he is, the man, Jason Huckabee. Go check out the Huck Outdoors Stumpy Meadows. His video was up on Tuesday, yesterday. Yes, sir. That man is a champion fisherman. That is what I can say. He caught all the fish. Mr. Brown Dwarf, dude, so glad you're with us. Wish you could have come with us. We're already planning a couple of more outings right in that right around the area, so not to worry. You're gonna get in on us as well. Don Reif, how are you doing, sir? Glad the Viking is with us as well. I know there's more than that. I know there's more than that. That's right. There's more than that. All right, let's move down here just a little bit. See, you're Hobo Man 5 checking in with us. How you doing there, sir? Glad you're with us. Gandalf the White. Yeah, they call me Chief Big Brown Bottom, but I don't know why. Peeing tree. I'll tell you that story one day. Let's see. We're getting down to the bottom here. Can Squanch is checking in as well. Glad you are with us. And there we go. If you haven't said hello to me, I don't know you're here. If I missed you, speak up because I can't really tell. There's the Brown Dwarf. I think I may have said hello to him. I'm sure Cassie and Christopher, eat your vegetables, dude. Trust me, to make you grow big and strong. The Mickey Hood. There you go. See, I wouldn't have known you were here. And there he is. Rod Dupree is always in the place to be. That man is a madman in the woods. I mean, he's got no fear whatsoever. And that, my friends, is what we are going to talk about now. That's right. So Expedition Stumpy was last weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday out at the Stumpy Meadows Reservoir. And let me tell you, I wish I had gotten out there a little earlier than this particular trip. I would have known a little bit more of what we were dealing with. But the 2014 fire really ripped the southern part of this reservoir apart. There's Bu and his family up fishing at the reservoir. Those guys came out and joined us on Friday night and stayed till Saturday morning. Look at how clear the water there at the reservoir is. I mean, it really is just a beautiful place. We weren't real sure what the heck this thing was. That's what we caught on the other side of the lake that day. Although Jason did tell us exactly what it was. I forget. It was some kind of yeah, neat little colorful thing. Had a lot of neat shapes and patterns to it. Not real sure what it is, but it was cool. Not worth eating. Another view of the lake we were fishing from. The inlet runs, over on the other side of this. The camp that we were at was on the back side of this, but all of this land back here for just miles and miles, as far as the tallest peak can see, has just been burned to crap by an arsonist and then just taken out. And you can see here in the background where all of that is charred, all of that is dead and benign, but everything's still alive. Everything is coming back. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of death in the eye, but it only happened 4 years ago. And just like I had hoped, a lot of the animals, especially those, have come back to the area. And we'll talk about that here in the next section of this. We went up to Uncle Tom's cabin. Looks like a 70s rock band. Chris on the left there, and Lewis and his wife, Maribel, and Jonathan Sasquatch, and of course there's the Huck Outdoors man, Jason Huck himself. He just loves him some. We hung out at Uncle Tom's cabin for a while. It's pretty neat. But this is literally the rebirth. As you can see, everything that was burned is almost new again, coming out the north side. It wasn't as damaged as the south side of the lake was, but it was definitely done. We were there Friday night. Most first evenings when we're out, we usually don't go out into the woods and make a lot of commotion and make a lot of noise. We were the only ones in camp, in the group camp that day. However, The singles camp, which was right around the corner from where we were, was practically full, practically full with campers, but we heard nothing. I mean, we heard absolutely nothing, and we were just up the hill from them. Bird calls, animal calls, nothing big. We didn't see any bear scat. We didn't see. There's Rodney Dupree. If you ever wanted to know exactly what he looks like, there's the man himself. It was super cool to hang out with everybody. And as usual, when we pack up camp on Sunday, you leave nothing but footprints. Not a thing behind, and everybody was really great about it. This little piece here in the background is a Boy Scouts project that talks about the fire that's out there, because eventually this will all really be grown up. I mean, there were tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of growing up pine trees. I mean, little tiny stuff that was only a foot or two tall, but in another 3 to 4 years, they're going to be gigantic. Now, mind you, if we wait till Sunday to take selfies, it gets kind of scary. So, yeah, just fantastically beautiful country. But when we had given up on the large animals and everything, all of a sudden they find eagles. An eagle flies over top of the guys while they were down fishing. And not only that, on the way out, finally on Sunday, as the last guys were going out, they experienced a bear that just walked out of the road and just crossed over the road right behind them. Just like a lot of the Bigfoot calls and everything, where, as you can tell, this is Sunday and everybody is still smiling and still having just a great time. So I'm thankful to everybody that came out. The only one I didn't get a selfie with was with Monica, and she was cooking, and I was just not capable of making it down to where she was cooking. Next time for sure. But it was a lot of fun, and we look forward to going back. But like I had said, the large animals are there, and they're still utilizing that area, even though the south of that is all burned out, because that's the snow line. They don't really have a choice. It's kind of where they end up. Now, granted, no real Bigfoot activity to really speak of over the weekend. Lots of good Bigfoot information being shared around the fire and stories and everything else going on. The only real loud Bigfoot calls we heard out there were mine. The Boy Scouts were in the other camp. They had probably 8 or 10 sites of Boy Scouts over there. So the second night, I really let them have it. I really let the Bigfoot yells come. Now, nobody really came looking to see where the sounds were coming from, and it may have actually gotten out that we were over there. But here's some more pictures of around camp down at the big group down at the fire pit. My wife, God bless her, she bought marshmallows the size of your fist. Like, trying to finish one of these things was a monster. Trying to roast them without melting them into the fire was quite interesting as well. Time delay picture from Jason's GoPro. Look at that. I mean, that's very, very, very cool. Those giant fists, I swear they were the size of your fist. I don't know why she would have pulled them up these big. Now, these are pictures that were shared with the group into our group chat that I would be able to share tonight on the show with you guys. The sides of Uncle Tom's cabin. Now, this is only 3 miles as the crow flies from where we were camped, and the fire touched it a little bit here and there, or a fire has, but by no means is this burnt down. This is where all the vegetation and everything was really left untouched. So, we're talking about, but this is still up above the snow line. This is up at 5240, and the snow still falls there heavily until the last snow. So down where we are at 4400, where all of that is burned out, is literally the first line below the snow line for the most part of the winter, and that's exactly why we went there. But here's a good view of that southern view all the way up to the high peak, where it was just gutted. I wanted to blame logging on this. I really did, but I should have known better, because logging would have replanted, and that's just not the case. However, like I said, when you walk around here, there every few feet, there are just pine trees are growing, and within 4 or 5 years, there's going to be 6-footers and 7-footers all over that area over there. I mean, that's why, pine trees grow fast enough. Every 14 years, they can harvest them. So it's already been 4 since 2014. another 4 to 5 years, and this will all be nearly as though it was untouched, and it should be a fantastic resource for wildlife, seeing as how the wildlife is already there. Stuff like this, the caterpillars were just everywhere. Nobody touched them because we figured that we would die if we did. But life was just everywhere on this trip. I mean, everything, even though the fire killed everything off, a lot of times it's a blessing and rebirth goes on after. This is over where Pilot Creek comes in. There's one of the fish that Jason managed to get out of the lake on us. We got there on the wrong moon phase, and the fishing it switched off on us, unfortunately, and that happens. So yeah, I mean that's really the long and the short of what happened over the weekend. It was a fantastic time of camping, early rising, everybody up 6:30 in the morning, cooking, eating, going on hikes, going fishing, and it just turned into a fantastic group time, and I'm glad we did it. And the guys come up from LA. We're gonna do another trip late August. I think I have found a place to close out the season, still in the Eldorado National Forest, still in it, but a completely different area outside of any of this fire damage, and roughly at the same altitudes. So we'll have to see as the animals return towards the fall, whether that makes any amount of difference for us out there. I want to thank everybody that came on the trip. I mean, it really, there was no raised voices. There was no attitude. There was no nothing. It was just a lot of fun conversation and a lot of good, just a squatchy good time. And I'm looking forward to the next one. We all are. We're hoping to meet up with some local people here in the next few weeks and go check out some new locations. Unfortunately, the road that led into everything we wanted to go squatchy and check out with is still covered up by a road slide. So they don't know when that's going to be fixed. So other arrangements within the Eldorado are going to have to be made. Stumpy won't be able to be my base camp, but trust me, I'll find one. And with that, really, I'm going to go ahead. My throat is killing me this evening. I'm going to wrap this up with a really good Bigfoot campfire story tonight. This is the story of Ape Canyon, and it's quite a long real Bigfoot encounter. So with that, I want to thank you guys all for being here and listening to the Stumpy Run. I would have loved to tell you that. Oh well, before I do, we did hear an elusive Sierra creature, especially in this area, was definitely heard and identified as elk, and there are no elk in that area. So we did experience a cryptid-like creature that gave an elk bugle inside the reservoir earshot line, and there shouldn't be any elk down there. So interesting. Other than that, the chemtrails were everywhere. You guys know how I feel about that. And we'll see you guys next week for more Bigfoot audio. Back to the deal. Voices in the night, right here on the Squatchers Lounge podcast. So thanks so much for being here, and may the Squatch be with you. Welcome to another episode of Real Bigfoot Encounters with Reverend Jeb. This week's story is a classic tale of danger and terror as 3 miners are driven from the area known as Ape Canyon. This version is in the words of Fred Beck, who was at the site when the encounter took place. Let's hear his story. First of all, I wish to give an account of the attack and tell the famous incident of July 1924 when the hairy apes attacked our cabin. We had been prospecting for 6 years in the Mount St. Helens and Lewis area of southwest Washington. We had from time to time come across large tracks by creek beds and springs. In 1924, I and 4 other miners were working our gold claim in the Vander White. It was 2 miles east of Mount St. Helens near the deep canyon now named Ape Canyon, which was so named after the account of the incident reached the newspapers. Hank, a great hunter and good woodsman, was always a little apprehensive after seeing the tracks.
The tracks were large, and we knew that no known animal could have made them. The largest measured 19 inches long. It was in the middle of July, and we had received a good assay of our claim. Everyone was excited. I remember I had a toothache that was just getting to me, and I suggested to Hank that he should take me to town to see a dentist. But he was also enthused in the prospects of the gold mine. He barely took time to answer me. He replied that God or the devil could not keep him away from there. He had all come up to this ford, and I had no way to get to town unless he took me. So when we went back to our cabin on the north side of the canyon, I had a nagging toothache and a little appetite for our evening meal of beans and hotcakes. Hank, though apprehensive, was still determined. We had been hearing noises in the evening for about a week. We heard a shrill, peculiar whistling each evening. We would hear it coming from one ridge, and then hear an answering whistle from another ridge. We also heard a sound which I could best describe as booming thumping sound, just like something was hitting itself on the chest. Hank asked me to accompany him to the spring, about 100 yards from our cabin, to get some water, and suggested we take our rifles. To be on the safe side, we walked up to the spring, and then Hank yelled and raised his rifle, and that instant I saw it. It was a hairy creature, and he was about 100 yards away, on the other side of the little canyon, standing by a pine tree. It dodged behind the tree and poked his head out from the side of the tree, and at the same time, Hank shot. I could barely see the bark fly out from the tree from each of his 3 shots. Someone may say that it was quite more of a distance to see the bark fly, but I saw it. The creature I judged to have been about 7 feet tall with blackish brown hair. It disappeared from our view for a short time, but then we saw it, running fast and upright, about 200 yards down the little canyon. I shot 3 times before it disappeared from view. We took the water back to the cabin and explained the affair to the rest of the party, and we all agreed, including Hank, to go home the next morning, as it would be dark before we could get to the car. We agreed it would be unsound to be caught by darkness on the way out. Nightfall found us in our pine log cabin. We had built the cabin ourselves, and it had been very sturdy. It stood for years afterwards, as was visited by many sightseers until a few years ago when it was burned to the ground. The circumstances of the fire, I don't recall. In the cabin, we had a long bunk bed in which 2 could sleep, feet to feet. The rest of us sleeping on pine boughs on the floor. At one end of the cabin, we had a fireplace, fashioned out of old rocks. There were no windows in the cabin, so darkness found all of us in the cabin. More calm now, and my tooth was better. Somehow the excitement seemed to work temporarily cure on it. We were sitting around, puffing on pipes and talking about the trip home the next day. Each of us settled down in his crude but well-welcomed and soon fell asleep in bed. About midnight, we were awakened. Hank, who was sleeping on the floor, was yelling and kicking, but the noise that had awakened us was a tremendous thud against the cabin wall. Some of the chinking had been knocked loose from between the logs and had fell on Hank's chest. He had his rifle in his hand and was waving it back and forth as he kicked and yelled. Hank always slept with his gun nearby. It was a Remington automatic. I helped to get the chinking off him, and he jumped to his feet. Then we heard a great commotion outside. It sounded like a great number of feet trampling and rattling over a pile of our unused shakes. We grabbed our guns. Hank squinted through the space left by the chinking. By actual count, he only saw 3 of the creatures together at one time, but it sounded like there were many, many more. This was the start of the famous attack, of which so much has been written in Washington and Oregon papers throughout the years. Most accounts tell of giant boulders being hurled against the cabin and say some even fell through the roof, but this was not quite the case. There were very few large rocks around that area. It is true that many of the smaller ones were hurled at the cabin, but they did not break through the roof, but hit with a bang and rolled off. Some did fall through the chimney of the fireplace. Some accounts state I was hit in the head by a rock and knocked unconscious. This is not true. The only time we shot our guns that night was when the creatures were attacking our cabin. When they would quiet down for a few minutes, we would quit shooting. I told the rest of the party that maybe if they saw that we were only shooting when they attacked, they might realize that we were only defending ourselves. We could have had clear shots at them through the opening left by one of the chinking had we chose to shot. We did shoot. However, when they climbed on the roof, we shot round after round through the roof. We had to brace the huge log door as the long pole taken from the bunk bed. The creatures were pushing against it, and the whole door vibrated from the impact. We responded by firing many more rounds through the door. They pushed against the walls of the cabin as if trying to push the cabin over, but this was pretty much an impossibility. As previously stated, the cabin was sturdy, and it was a very well-made building. Hank and I did most of the shooting. The rest of the party crowded at the far end of the cabin, guns in their hands. One had a pistol, which was still in my family's possession. The others clutched their rifles. They seemed stunned and incredulous. The attack continued the remainder of the night, with only short intervals in between. A most profound and frightening experience occurred when one of the creatures, being close to the cabin, reached an arm through the chinking space and seized one of our axes by the handle. A much written about incident, and a true one. Before the thing could pull the axe out, I swiftly turned the head of the axe upright so that it caught on the logs, and at the same time, Hank shot, barely missing my hand. The creature let go, and I pulled the handle back in and put the axe in a safe place. A humorous thing I will remember was Hank singing, "If you leave us alone, we'll leave you alone, and we'll all go home in the morning." He did not mean it to be humorous, for Hank was dead serious and sang under the impression the mountain devils, as he called them, might understand and go away. The attack ended just before daylight. Just as soon as we were sure it was light enough to see, we came out cautiously of the cabin. It was not long before I saw one of the ape-like creatures standing about 80 yards away near the edge of the Ape Canyon. I shot 3 times, and it toppled over the cliff, down into the gorge, some 400 feet below. Then Hank said that we should get out of there as soon as possible, and not bother to pack our supplies or equipment out. After all, he said, it's better to lose them than our lives. We were all only too glad to agree. We brought out only that which we could get into our pack sacks. We left about $200 in supplies, powder, and drilling equipment behind. I tried to persuade everyone not to relate the happenings to anyone, and they agreed, but Hank soon let the cat out of the bag. We made our way to the Spirit Lake, and Hank went into the ranger station. He had told the ranger earlier about the tracks, and the ranger had replied, "Let me know if you find out what they are." That's just what Hank did, to the puzzlement of the ranger. When we were back home in Kelso, Washington, he told some of his friends, and somehow the story leaked out to the papers, and the Great Hairy Ape Hunt of 1924 was on. The local reporters interviewed us. They came from Portland and Seattle. Even a big game hunter from England came asking questions. He had a large gun with him that must have been an elephant gun. Many people flocked to the Mount St. Helens area looking for the Great Hairy Apes, or mountain devils. I myself went back up with 2 reporters and a detective from Portland, Oregon. We found large tracks, and they photographed them. We did not see any of the ape men, nor could we find the ones that we had shot. So people always ask, was it true, or was it just a wild tale? I can assure you, from my perspective, it was 100% true. For Fred and his mining cohorts, an experience with the wild hairy ape man of North America was a terrifying and frightening night they will never forget. For me, it was just another real Bigfoot encounter. Thanks for watching. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.
All right, folks, we'll see you next week. Thanks for being here. And may the Squatch be with you.